And if you talk about your best and worst investment in your entire career, so what would you categorize as the best investment so far and the worst investment?
I think I'll start with the worst. I think I spent too much of time thinking of tea plantation industry, and
Mhm.
sitting in South, I've traveled to Munnar, I've traveled to Nilgiris, and I used to see these tea gardens, and I used to do this simple calculation, calculate the cost of real estate per acre of those tea gardens, and used to find them very, very cheap. And I used to think, how can you recreate a tea garden so it's like a moat? So I used to think maybe these stocks will actually do well. And I got the same feeling with some of the Assam tea companies as well. And I thought that these tea plantation companies were actually going to be something which will deliver returns. And if you go back to 1980s Madras Stock Exchange, I think 10% of the companies which are listed in Madras Stock Exchange were actually tea plantation companies. You'd be surprised to know. There were companies like Periyakaramalai, Neelamalai, okay, Peer Made, and so many tea companies were listed at that point of time in the Madras Stock Exchange and in the Calcutta Stock Exchange. I remember MacLeod, Russell, Makum, Namdang, so many other tea companies. And they were also Ferra companies, some of them which are diluted at that point of time. And I think it was a total waste. They didn't deliver returns. And I think it is the Kenyan tea companies which turned out to be much better than the Indian tea companies. There were bought out tea factories which came up, which actually destroyed value. But clearly, that was the worst, I would say. The best, what we realized over a period of time was, you could buy many of the commodity companies very cheap. You could buy, for example, in 2002, after a very, very bad period for steel, many of the steel companies, many of the metal companies had become so cheap that you can't believe that those companies had become dirt cheap, whether it was iron ore companies or steel companies. Because from 1994 to 2002, those 8-year period, the steel and iron ore had one of the worst cycles ever. You could have never believed that iron ore would go down to that price. And 2002 to 2007, thanks to China, was exactly the opposite. And some of them turn out to be 50 baggers in that period from 2002 to 2007. So I would say many of the metal companies, and after that it has stuck, that if you see any commodity stock in doldrums, it's something which fascinates me, because I've seen that commodities, you sometimes don't need to look at the management. Those commodities the worst management can turn out to be one of the best companies later when the cycle turns. So I've seen it across commodities, whether it is metals, whether it is chemicals. Across, you've seen situations where the worst company becomes very, very good. And that's what I would call the best company, because you don't need to then look at the company, you don't need to meet the management. The management itself didn't know that things will improve from 2002 to 2007. If they had known it, they themselves would have bought much more of their stock. They didn't know that. They used to think that their sector is gone. But from 2002 to 2007, the sector did so well.
So, what went wrong with the tea plantation industry, and why do you think the companies which were there, the companies that you named, were not able to deliver the returns?
I think some of them had bad corporate
Mm.
governance. I think the African tea companies turned out to be more efficient. I think the African cost of manufacture of tea was turned out to be much better. So I think it's like, the moat was not there.
Mm.
We used to like the Assam companies, their tea gardens look good.
Mm.
Maybe the Munnar and the Nilgiri tea gardens look good, but the Kenyan tea gardens were much more efficient. And clearly, I didn't go to Kenya. I only saw these tea gardens and they were looking good. They didn't make money.
So, do you think that it was like one of the mistakes where you invested in those companies too early without doing a lot of homework or research?
No, I wouldn't even say that I misjudged the moat. It is like, if you look at what happened to Warren Buffett in print media, for a long period of time, print media was considered to be one of the best moats. But then subsequently, internet destroyed the moat. So I would say it's not possible for all of us to know what is the moat in a sector. Print media was an unassailable moat. People thought that print media moat will never disappear, but over a period of time, the moat just disappeared. So like that, the judgment was wrong that African tea could not have done well, but later we realized that African tea was possibly much more efficient than Indian tea companies. It is just like what happened in US. Many of the railroads came, and they got destroyed by the highway system that got created. What is called as there's a famous new article written by Theodore Levitt called Marketing Myopia, that you have to know what is the need being satisfied, whether it is oral, for example, mobiles destroyed landline phones. Scooters were never were turned out to be replaced by mobikes in India, because transportation started happen through mobikes in India. So I would say marketing myopia is something, one of the most interesting pieces written, and which people have to be aware of. What is the need being satisfied? Suppose you have the investment need, you can't say that Madras Stock Exchange will satisfy it or Calcutta Stock Exchange will satisfy it. You have to remember that you can always get disrupted.
If you learned something new from this video, do share it with your friends and subscribe to this channel so that we can bring you the best content possible. Also, if you want to watch this entire episode, click on the link in the description box and you can go to Kushal Lodha YouTube channel and watch the entire podcast episode. Thank you so much for watching this and have an amazing day.